Are you likely to show up to an important meeting from your phone in your car? A really important meeting? Maybe not.
What do you do? What do you do when there's a no-show?
This is a distracted prospect.
There's the half show, there's the dark show, there's the broken contract, and there's the early exit. So they're the 5 categories of poor showing.
And just take the wheel.
No show is like the ultimate poor show.
You can choose to respect yourself or disrespect yourself.
This particular prospect was an absolute piece of work.
I ended up just hanging up on the 3rd try. I should have hung up on the 2nd one.
I don't think it's worth the risk.
If you feel it, say it.
It hit me by surprise, and I didn't do the right thing.
Honestly, it's very disempowering that you train people how to treat you.
No-shows are actually a subset of a bigger problem. Hey, closers. Welcome to this week's episode of Unscripted Selling, the rebranded It Shouldn't Happen to Us, coming at you from Miami with Sophia and Carlos. Good morning, Sophia. Good morning.
Grand Rising. Straight out of the 305, we're coming at you, folks. So turn the volume up and put your windows down.
So today we're doing a part 2. Sophia, we've never done a part 2 before. I feel like we're breaking new ground. Feel like an explorer, like a Scott of the Antarctic. We're going to break new ground, and we're going to do a part 2 to last week's part 1. Last week, we talked about no-shows. What do you do? What do you do when there's a no-show to your sales call, to your sales meeting, your selling event? Well, it made Sophia and I sit back, scratch our heads, and think, no-shows are actually a subset of a bigger problem, and that's kind of the poor showing. No show is like the ultimate poor show because they don't show up, but it's bigger than that. And we spoke last week about, and you should catch last week's episode. You really should. I'm hoping our producer puts some kind of link to last week's episode in the notes, because then you'll be able to click straight to it. Because last week we told you about what do you do when there's a no-show? How do you prevent a no-show? We told you some stories about how no-shows impacted us, because it isn't supposed to happen to us, but it happens to us anyway. And we talked about how to post-sell an appointment and some cool techniques like that. This week we're gonna widen this lens. It's a wider lens, Sophia. We're gonna look at this issue from a broader perspective. And we're going to say, okay, no-shows, we've spoken about what to do about them, but what do we do about poor showings? There's a few ways in which a customer or prospect can show up poorly to a sales call. And we scribbled some down for you. We've categorized these as so there's no show. That was last week. There's the half show. Sophia's going to talk to you all about the half show. There's the dark show. Sophia's going to talk to you about the dark show. There's the broken contract, the broken time contract. I'm going to talk to you about that because that's happened to me. And it's not supposed to happen to us, but it does. So there's the broken time contract. There's the broken leg. And there's the early exit. So they're the 5 categories of poor showing that we are going to talk to you about today. Today is full of tips and tricks and tools and techniques and mindsets. And it's like a festival of sales development.
Of fast prospects.
It's a festival today, Sophia. It's like a buffet. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet. And so kick us off, Sophia. Oh, you know what I was supposed to do? I was supposed to do a like and subscribe. Are you crazy if you've not liked and subscribed? Sophia and I bring you this every week, like the best sales guidance.
Do you really want to miss an episode? Do you really want to risk missing an episode of this absolute gold that we're dropping on you every week? I don't think so. You know what
they could miss? They could miss that one move, that one mindset, that one behavior that's going to be worth $1 million. I don't think it's worth the risk. Like, subscribe, catch every episode, guys. So, Sophia, kick us off.
So, let's get our goggles on and dive into the sea of the
here.
menagerie of half-assed prospects that exist out there. So let's start off with the half show, Carlos. What do you think? So you're wondering, what is the half show? Well, it's a lot like what it sounds like. This is a distracted prospect. You know what I'm talking about. You launch the Zoom meeting, your prospect shows up, and you can already see that their screen is in phone portrait mode and they're driving. Okay. You know, Carlos, this episode, I think, and last episode, they're so important because I really believe that you train people how to treat you. And when you see that iPhone camera show up to your 90-minute discovery call, let's say this is a 90-minute discovery call.
Like we have.
And your prospect, last time you met, they told you, no, this is important. They gave you all these interested signs, and then they show up on the road. Let me ask you, closers, are you likely to show up to an important meeting from your phone in your car? A really important meeting? Maybe not. Maybe if it's an internal meeting.
Do you call your cardiologist for like a good, do you call your oncologist from your car? You don't.
No.
You sit down with paper near you where you can make notes. And
another flavor of distraction can be the person who keeps getting phone calls. Carlos, it just happened to me about a month ago. I've been in this sales game for a little bit now, but these kinds of things still happen to us. It shouldn't happen to us, but it still happens to us. I'm on with a prospect, and he keeps saying, hold on a minute, Sophia, and putting me on hold. Hold on, this is an important call. He did it like 3 times, and the third time, he kept me on hold for a long time, Carlos. And honestly, I was hovering over myself.
I listened to that call. I don't know how you stayed on. I honestly don't know how you stayed on. You cashed in a hell of a lot of dignity on that call.
I really did. And honestly, wow. It's very disempowering. And I at some point I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I staying on? I hung up. I ended up just hanging up on the third try. I should have hung up on the second one.
It's interesting. That I listen. So guys, we record most of our calls. We're not orthodox about it, but most of them will record. And especially if something interesting or fun or there's a good lesson to be learned, we'll share those recordings. This particular prospect was an absolute piece of work. We don't usually call out prospects. We don't usually name them, but I'm naming him, Sophia. Sebastian. You know who you are. If you listen to the pod, you know who you are. He's not listening
to this pod.
He's really not listening to this pod.
He's really not listening to this pod, no. So another distraction could be kids coming in and out of the room. Any distraction, we call that a half show. So
what do you do with it? What do you do?
What do you do? Hey, if you feel it, say it, right?
Best sales guidance ever. If you feel... Your gut tells you so much about what's going on. If you feel it, say it.
At this point, you can choose to respect yourself or disrespect yourself. With Sebastian, I disrespected myself. So I pretty much gave him a manual on how to continue to disrespect me, right? It's my fault. I mean, I can blame Sebastian. He was a piece of work. But it's my fault. It was my fault. So at this point, Ho'oponopono, right? So at that point, I should say, hey, you know what, Sebastian? I get a sense that this is not a great time for a chat. Let's reschedule. And what if they say, no, now's a great time. It's fine. Say, look, I'm having a hard time conducting this meeting. I'm having a hard time understanding more about your business.
Here's the word. I'm having a hard time leading this meeting because that that stamps your authority right back on it. Right?
I'm having a hard time leading this meeting. Let's reschedule and just take the wheel assertively, not aggressively, assertively.
Yeah.
And if they don't,
with a heart full of love, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Take it back. And you know what? And if the guy says or the gal says, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm a bit distracted. Let's put this in for 2 days' time." I think that's a great opportunity to say, "Can I rely? I'm going to make sure I'm not going to be distracted. Can I rely on you to do the same?" Like, lay it on a little thick.
I told my client the other day, I said, next time we meet, I'd like you to be grounded at your desk on Zoom. Because every time he tries to log on in his car all the time, he's like, I'm not worried. I'm like, please drive safe. He's like, I'm not worried about it. And I'm worried about it. Right?
Yeah. So
half show.
Don't stand for it. Take the wheel, stamp a little authority. And if you feel it, say it. If you feel it like, wow, this is feeling, I'm a little bit disoriented by all these calls, Sebastian. Hey, listen, I know the world's got to keep spinning just because me and you are chatting. The world doesn't stop spinning. But is there going to be a better time for this? Because I think this is important. Boom. I'm finding it difficult to lead this meeting. Boom. All right, that's beautiful. Let's go for number 2. Number 2 is the early exit. Sophia, this happened to me about 3 weeks ago. I'm not going to mention his name, Matt, but it happened to me. And
you skedaddler.
Do you know? So I'll tell you what it is in a minute, but I blew it. Just for the clarity for my listeners, we never lie to you on this show. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was a tough guy. One of the reasons I wanted to actually bring this topic up is because I absolutely blew it. I know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't do it. Knowing what to do and doing it, 2 completely different things. It hit me by surprise, and I didn't do the right thing. And I wonder if part of the reason is that it did hit me by surprise. So here's what an early exit is. You sit in a room. There's 2 or 3 guys in the room. In this case, there was 2. So I'm sitting in the room, we're like, hey, we do our introductions, chat. In this case, we were about 15, 20 minutes into a sort of 60-minute meeting. And the CEO stands up, says, hey, Carlos, really great to have you here. Really excited about this potential, about what we might be doing together. I'm going to leave you with VP of Sales. I'm leaving you with VP of Sales. I've just got some pressing stuff I've got to do. And I was like, right, cool, great to see you. We're going to get on great. And the CEO left, and I'm like, what the hell do I do now? And I did it wrong. I know what right is supposed to look like. And
what's right supposed to look like?
It hit me too late. I'll tell you what I should have said. And then I'll tell you why I think I dropped the ball. What I'm supposed to say at that point is, Matt, listen, I get it. I'm going to guess me and, I'm not going to name him, Mr. VP of Sales. I'm going to guess me and Mr. VP. We're going to be able to bash out most of these details. He's got all the authority here, right? So I'm going to say to the CEO, right in front of his VP of Sales, he's got all the authority here, right? Difficult for the CEO to right in front of the VP say, oh, no, he hasn't got any authority. So Mr. CEO would at that point typically say, absolutely. And then I'm going to say, so any decision we need to make, me and VP can do it, right? We don't have to circle back to you. VP's got all the authority, all the trust that he needs, right? And Mr. CEO is going to say, always does, absolutely. Then when I get to the end of the meeting, what I'm avoiding, not perfectly, it's not magical, but 90% of the time, I'm avoiding Mr. VP saying, great, Carlos, listen, I have to get back to CEO because I got the CEO to pass the baton of power down to the VP of Sales on the way out the door. That's what I'm supposed to do. Now, usually you find out this is going to happen at the beginning of the meeting. And that's why I would normally have done that talk track right at the beginning. But it caught me off guard because the guy stood up like in the middle of nowhere. Normally, it's at the beginning of the meeting. CEO says, hey, Carlos, great to have you. I know we said there's going to be an hour. I'm going to leave you in about 20 minutes with Mr. VP, and I can do my talk track at that point. Usually that's when I do it. But this hit me out of the blue, and I should have done the pass of the baton of power, and I didn't, and I'm an idiot. I know what I should do, but I didn't do it. So, guys, when this happens to you, when the decision maker's early exiting, get him to pass or get her to pass the baton of power down. Guys, you're crazy if you're not liking and subscribing to this, because you're getting some of the best techniques in the business. Some of the best techniques, right, Sophia?
That's absolutely right. So
who's doing the next
go
one?
ahead.
You're doing the next one, or you do the next one. You do the next one. It's the it's the dark show. What do you do? So we've done the half show. We've done the no show last week. Half show. You're going to do the dark show. I did the early exit. Do dark show.
Dark show. Hey, subset of the half show.
It is.
It's similar to someone showing up distracted, taking phone calls, driving, their kids are coming in the room, right? Is the dark show. You've shown up on Zoom with your Zoom camera on, and your prospect shows up with your camera off. And it's always kind of awkward because you're like, oh, I can't see you, George. And they're like, yeah, excuse, I'm not going to turn my camera on, or I'm sick today, or whatever BS they give you. And it's always so awkward.
Don't you also get that? I've got a new computer. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago. Got a new computer. Nonsense. It's so hard to sell to somebody when I don't know. I find it harder to do the sales call by video when their camera's not on, because all I'm doing is looking at myself. Harder than a telephone call, don't you?
Well, it's always so awkward, right? Because it's like, do I keep my camera on? Do I turn my camera off? And the answer is no. You do not turn your camera off, and you gently, nurturingly command that your prospect turn their camera on. Hey, this is going to be a little awkward. Me just looking at myself. I love looking at myself in the Zoom viewfinder, especially with this nice filter that airbrushes everything. But it's really going to be hard for me to connect with you. If my job today is to see the world through your eyes and really ask some tricky questions, I'm missing out on that body language, George. Should we reschedule this for a time, so you can figure out your computer settings so you can turn this camera on. Don't back down. Don't get wimpy at the beginning. It's what we do at the beginning that lays out the foundation for how that prospect is going to treat you. So respect MFing self and ask them to get their camera on or reschedule.
That was a work of beauty, Sophia.
Was that a monologue that they're going to use for auditions?
It was like David. It was like Michelangelo's David. Do it again. So camera's off. So I'm prospect. My camera's off. Do it. Take charge. That was beautiful.
Okay. Hey, Carlos, I noticed that your Zoom camera's off.
Oh, I'm not feeling 100% today. A little bit sick today.
Oh no, I'm sorry that you're under the weather. Let's reschedule it. Let's
do it.
Friday.
Let's do it anyway. We're on now.
Oh no, Carlos. Honestly, it's going to be super. Here's the thing. I'm really trying to see the world through your eyes today. I'm going to be asking you some tricky questions. I want to connect with you, and it's hard for me to connect when I'm just seeing a black screen with your name, and I'm looking at myself. I love looking at myself. Don't get me wrong, but I today's about you, and I want to connect with you. So I suggest we reschedule. Yeah.
Kaboom. Boom shakalaka.
That's it.
That is fabulous.
No. It's no. I'm not going to have a 90-minute meeting where my camera's on. I'm not going to turn my camera off. I'm not going to have a 90-minute discovery call and get to surface business impact, monetizing pain. I'm not going to have a full-blown personal impact. I'm not going to do that on the equivalent of a phone call. It's not going to happen.
Nope.
No.
I actually find it much harder than on a phone call. I agree 100%. Okay. Yep. So, guys, let me get to the final. Well, I've got 2 more to do. I'm gonna take these 2, but the last one I'm gonna get through pretty quick. But the broken time contract. Oh my goodness me! So this is when somebody shows up. Now, it isn't as bad when it's on Zoom or on a telephone call. You know, when they show up and they say, oh, hey, I know we had an hour put aside for this, but I've only got 30 minutes or I've only got 25 minutes. And by the way, in my experience, this happens a lot. This happens way more than it should. And I think that and by the way, I'm also feeling it's happening more and more. Not just to us, not just to me, but I review a lot of client calls. I review a lot of calls for clients, and I'm starting to notice this a lot. And I think it is a symptom of increasingly overcommitted calendars. I think the world has got increasingly overcommitted calendars. And so people are feeling a lot of pressure, and people are having to put 2 hours worth of work into a 1 hour time slot. And every day they're looking and they're thinking, where can I trim? Where can I trim? And, you know, they've got that sales meeting at, 11:30 that was supposed to run till 12:30. And they're thinking, I'll grab 30 minutes there. It isn't because they don't want to participate in the sales call. It isn't because it isn't important. It isn't even, sometimes it's a power move, but most of the time in my experience, it isn't. It's somebody who's looked at their calendar and realized they need to find 2 hours today, and they've got to get the scissors out and snip, snip, snip. They've got to trim a load of their meetings down. That's what I'm noticing. I think this is happening a lot, guys. So we've got to know how to deal with it. You know, not the first time, one of the early times where this happened to me and I actually took charge, because usually in the past I'd just give somebody a pass for it. Hey, no problem. Let's see if we can race through, which is a terrible way to handle this particular issue. You turn up at a sales call, maybe at their place, or at they turn up to your place, or even worse, on a Zoom or a telephone call, and they say, "Hey, I know we've got an hour. I know we had an hour set aside. I need to get through this in 25, 30 minutes." The wrong thing to do is to move forward with that meeting exactly as it was planned and try and get through it in 30 minutes. What you're essentially teaching your prospect to do is just treat me however you want. Just treat me however you want. That's what you're teaching your prospect to do. Hey, my time isn't as valuable as your time. My stature isn't as high as your stature. That's the message, right, Soph? That if you carry on.
Absolutely. What would you say, Carlos, to our closers that are listening and thinking, yeah, man, but the CEO, it's like boiling the ocean trying to get the CEO in front of you. And any time you got to make the most out of it. What would you say to that closer that's listening right now?
You know, I'm reminded of the great words of Tom Landry. You get what you expect and you encourage what you tolerate. I just don't think. I think it's a very gentle disrespect. And I don't want to encourage a disrespect, because actually encouraging it means that the next one's going to be a little stronger and a little stronger. And before you know it, you're in a toxic relationship. You've struck up a business relationship rich in toxicity, not rich in mutual respect. So this happened to me about 8 years ago. I drove for an hour and a half to a prospect. An hour and a half, right down deep in the Redlands, Sophia. It was an orchid grower. I'm not going to mention the name because that would be inelegant. But let me tell you, those orchid companies make great money. And this company had a sales force, and I was invited. They invited me over. It wasn't like I prospected them. That was inbound. And they invited me over to meet VP of Sales, a lady called Maria. And I drove 90 minutes deep in the Redlands. And I get there, and Maria, right out of the gate, as I arrived, I said, "Hey, Carlos here," and here to see Maria. Maria came out, and I'm gonna try, and I'm not as good as you at the theater, so I'm gonna try and be Maria.
Give us
She
Maria.
said to me, "Oh, it's Carlos, right? Listen, I've got 25 minutes. Let's go." And it was horrible. Now, if she'd have said, "Carlos, I've blown it, made a mistake with my calendar, I've double booked, really sorry, but I've only got 25 minutes. Do you know, I think I would have let her get away with it. I honestly do. So she did me a favor, by being mean about it, by being like horrible about it. She actually forced me to handle it right. This is the first time I handled it right. But I'm in a tricky spot, right? It's a sales call I want to be on, and I've driven 90 minutes to get
90
there.
minutes through palm farms and banana plants.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Just through the through landscape you don't want to. It's just an area you don't want to be driving in, right? It's just swampy and muddy, and it's
shady.
Yeah. So I got there, and I had to make a decision in a heartbeat, which is what we often have to do in selling. And I thought, what do I do with this? I want to do the sales call. I've been 90 minutes on the road for this. She's come out of the office. I'm pretty sure if her calendar changed, it didn't change in the last 30 seconds. She could have called yesterday. She could have called when I was on the way down. She could have got ahead of this issue. She didn't care. If anything, it felt like she kind of liked it. It was a power move for her. And I think she did me a favor because it forced me to handle it right. And I went, "Hey, Maria, I ain't good enough to get through it in 25 minutes. Hey, we've got a choice. Do you want to spend the next 25 minutes with our calendars open together and find a time that we can both do up in Miami in my office? Subtext, I ain't driving down here again.
I'm not coming back.
Or should we start now? When we spoke on the telephone, you were going to have questions answered today, and I was going to have questions answered today. We'll probably only have time for my questions. And then if you have got questions that are burning, then maybe we can reschedule for the second part of the meeting and you come up to Miami for that. Sound fair? So what I said, we gave her a choice. We either reschedule, but you're coming to Miami, or we get through my part of the agenda, no value for you. And then if you want value, you can come up to Miami for value. And it felt pretty good, that. So what happened? She picked option 2. What's behind door 2? She picked option 2. Let's start. Her demeanor changed significantly.
Yeah.
She was
your daddy.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I mean, I'm not that good, but a little bit. And she, in the end, I ended up staying easily 90 minutes. So this 25-minute early cutoff evaporated. I mean, I didn't call it out. We just rolled with it.
It's truly, closers, if you're listening.
I don't know what she was doing. I think she just thought
I'm not saying that it's intentionally. I'm not saying it's an intentional test from the prospect, but I want our closers to view it as a test. Am I going to go wimpy, or am I going to take the wheel of this opportunity so that it doesn't get out of control?
I honestly think if Maria had been nice about it, I'd have blown it, because she did me a favor by being mean about it. She honestly did. She did me a favor by being mean about it. And so that's how to handle it. Give them a choice. Hey, are we going to spend the 20? We can't do it. Don't make them concertina the sales call into 25 minutes, guys. It's too important. It's too important to you. Don't compress that sales call. They're the ones that with the problem. Let them figure out the solution. Hey, do you want to reschedule? Or should we get through my part of the agenda? And you know, in my experience, that experience with Maria, but other experiences over the years, they find the time magically, especially if they're having fun with you. I mean, who's not going to sit with a cool sales guy and not have a ton of fun? If they're having fun with you and you're having a good time, and by the way, if you're any good, they should be having fun with you. They should be intrigued. They should be a little challenged. It should be valuable. A sales call should be hugely valuable to the prospect. Hugely valuable.
Absolutely.
Right, we've got one more that we promised to talk about, which is a broken leg. We're running towards the end of time, so I'm going to scoot through a broken leg. Broken leg is when you've got a meeting with, with two parties. Sometimes if you're in home sales, it's a husband and wife. Sometimes it's the CIO and CEO, and you're expecting two parties. You're expecting two parties there, and you get there and there's one party. Do you know? What do you think we should do with that? What would you do with that, Sophia? You're expecting the VP of sales and the CEO, and you get there, and it's just the VP of sales.
Well, first of all, I'm going to act very confused. I'm going to act very confused and say, hey, George, I appreciate you inviting me in to discuss X, Y, and Z. I was under the impression that Bob would be able to join us today. I was looking forward to meeting with both you and Bob and having a melding of the minds, connecting of the minds. Where's Bob? Oh, excuse. So here's the thing. You and I are going to have a great conversation today. And no matter what happens at the end of this conversation, my promise to you is that you're going to get value out of this conversation. My greatest fear is that it's going to die here, and Bob is going to feel like he was a knight of the round table that was left out. And this is part of my process is having a round table conversation with all the important knights present. You're an important knight, and Bob's an important knight. So how about we reschedule for a time that all three of us can be here? Or you can give them two options. Either A, we reschedule, or B, I'm worried, George, that you're going to have to take my bullets for me. I'm happy to have a great meeting with you today, but then we're going to have to script together and come up with together what the message that you're going to convey to Bob, because I don't want you to take my bullets.
In the context of a B2B sale, like you've just described, I think the best way to do it is for you to summarize by video the meeting for Bob.
That's great.
So send them a Vidyard summary of Bob, we missed you today. And copy VP of sales too, so it isn't disrespectful. It isn't jumping over them.
Right. No.
Hey, Bob, we missed you today. I thought I would just summarize what Mr. VP and I spoke about today. We spoke about 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the decision we made. Video's cool.
The video's going to come anyways. Right. So you're going to send a video whether Bob was present or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, the one thing I would caution our viewers, our listeners on is with a home sale setting. And I know that there are those guys out there that are teaching you, never sell to a broken leg, never sell to a one-legger. I think it's nonsense, guys. I don't think that's in the real world. I think that's back in the 70s with caveman selling. If you get there and you thought you were going to walk into the husband and wife team and it's just the husband or just the wife, just roll forward. Just do it. Things happen. Don't take it personally. Don't try and pull some of those shady sales moves like, let's reschedule. It's a home sale. It's somebody's doing something to the home. The cooler you play that, the groovier you are there, the more you'll win that deal. Remember that old adage. If you're doing home sales, windows, doors, roofs, solar, whatever, plumbing, HVAC, if you're doing home sales, the guy who cares most about the prospect wins the deal. So just come at it with a very big heart. Hey, Sophia, wind it up for us. What have we learned today?
We've spoken about half shows. What do we do when a prospect is driving? Their kids keep coming and they keep getting a phone call. We talked about the classic, the early exit. We talked about the broken contract. You set a meeting for 90 minutes and they can only do 25. What do? We talked about the dark show. Yes, the classic Zoom show up that doesn't turn their camera on. And we closed out with the broken leg.
And the broken time contract. Beautiful.
And the broken time contract.
I think everyone should like and subscribe. What do you think, Sophia?
I think they should if they know what's good for them. Eat your Wheaties and like and subscribe.
Hey, guys, good selling. That's the end of the pod. It's goodbye from Sophia.
And goodbye from Carlos. Thanks for listening.
Take care, guys.